getting logged out and coming in again, getting logged out. Are y'all having any issues? Or was it y'all who were just probably going out and coming in? Because yesterday we had some issues. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining in. I think the rest would add on while the training starts. And yes, this is our AB-731, which is driving AI transformation in your organization. And we've got a trainer expert, Sarabjit Singh, who's joining us from Singapore for this session. And I don't know why. So guys, yeah. So thank you for joining in again from all over, and we look forward to for you all for having a great session here with Gil. Um, so anything. So for those who've actually joined the previous sessions, I'm sure you've received an email from our admin team on to log into SkillSpot, where you will find those courses, the 3 courses that you're supposed to do the assessment, and then Microsoft will basically share the email voucher codes with all the exam voucher codes. Yeah. Gil, if you're ready, we could start the session. Or if you all have any other questions, you can raise your hands, unmute your mic, or put it on the chat, everyone. All right, thank you.
Okay, cool. I'm getting there's a big latency. I'm not sure why that's happening. Just give me a minute. Okay, gonna share screen now.
Yeah, your mic, there's a bit of a jitter.
Yeah, I was getting that earlier even when you were talking. So let me just cancel this setup first. Hold on.
Sure.
Just gonna cancel this setup. Okay, got it. Okay, closing some applications that are running in the background. Should be able to get this.
I hear a very low voice, Gil, from your end.
Yeah, I'm just shutting down some computers.
Okay. No worries.
The application is just killing my resources on my computer. Okay, there you go. Hopefully that's better. And I'm going to share screen. Okay, now can you hear me now? I'm just getting a little bit of a latency here.
No worries. Now it's better.
Okay, it should be better. Not sure why the Teams is hanging out. It's much better. And oh, there you go. I think that's better. Okay, cool. All right, got it. Perfect. Okay, let's get started. All right, so I can see there's a lot of people in there now. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen, and let's go right there. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to be discussing about this training. Of course, it's a full day training, but we want to show you what the content of that training be like. So that you would get if you attended the full day session on how to bring business value of generative AI solutions and how to be able to make decisions as a leadership person to be able to decide to say, hey, yep, this AI is going to work for me and what needs to be done. All right. So I'm going to literally use the course material that comes with that training. So I'm going to share that out directly. correct? So I get to walk through that slide deck. But of course, when we do this training in full session, we usually gonna spend an hour and we're gonna have some hands-on lab as we're going through the whole cycle, right? So let's get started. Any questions you have, just put that down in the chat. At the end of the day, I will maybe we will allow you to speak up, and if you have any question, you can just go ahead and ask them there. So I'm gonna have my chat screen open, and let's get started. Okay, so what is this whole idea around business value? So business value in the sense here is that if you say, look, I want to use AI for my organization. Now you're not going to do it just for the sake of AI being implemented in your environment. Okay, correct? Sorry, somebody said something.
No, I just muted them.
Okay, cool. All right. So if you're going to implement AI in your organization, you must be able to get the business value out of it. That means that there should be a certain amount or whatever your goals are. Either you're doing cost savings, or you're reducing manual labor, you're reducing the cost of repetitive tasks, or you're seeing ROI, you're increasing revenues in your sale. It could be any one of those. Then that is what we want to see, correct? So you must be able to know what the business value that you can obtain when you are using an AI solution. The first part, of course, is to talk about what AI is in general. So the reason why we call it artificial is because we're trying to imitate a certain human behavior, and usually these are cognitive behaviors. Cognitive behavior means being able to speak, being able to listen, being able to generate content via audio, video, or draw something, or be able to look at a trend and identify data, and so on and so forth, correct? So all these are typically what we know as AI. Now, these are example of basic concepts. So AI in general gets to do all of these things. Things like vision, face API, for example, speech recognition, decision making, reading, extracting data from forms or templates and stuff like that, correct? Now, the big difference between a generative AI and AI in general is the keyword generative. Means it generates brand new content. Here, you have the content, we're just extracting metadata of the content. So you might have a picture, we might have a picture, and we want to extract information of that picture. That's what you're trying to do. So you're not really generating brand new content. You're mainly just trying to understand what you already have. Here, you are creating content. Completely brand new, correct? It's completely created from scratch by generative AI, correct? Now, that is the terms that we use to describe it. But if you want to take a look at it from a engineering point of view, there's multiple layers of AI, what we call this AI foundation, correct? AI foundation literally means how do you go ahead and build that AI in the first place? Well, first of all, it's going to be data. We really need to find the data that we need. We need to be able to transform that data so it's usable for us to be able to use it for any AI-related matters. Number two, we need some algorithms. These are really powerful algorithms which gets to learn from your data and then produce a software code called a model. The model literally is what we call a machine learning model. The model is the one that you can talk to, and you'll be able to use it to predict information and be able to generate content. Now, very often, it's not like all the data that we feed into the machine learning, we already know the answers. A lot of times we don't even know what the answer is, but we do have the data and we're trying to find answers. In that case, what happens is you'll most probably use another method of running machine learning algorithms called deep learning. Deep learning has these many layers, so it traverses through that same data multiple times, trying to make sense of it and being able to find some sort of relationship between that data, correct? So this is just the high level overview of the technology that we use. So welcome to generative AI. Generative AI, of course, is the idea that we have a piece of code that has been created by using deep learning, using data, correct? And of course, with some really powerful machine learning algorithms. And with that code that you have created, it is now what we call a large language model. If it's a very large code with billions and now going into a trillion parameter, correct? And of course, you have small language model, which fits into your laptop or your PC or your desktops, and those are called small language model. It's just the amount of parameters that the code has. Either it's a small language model or large language model. Correct. So large language model will be with a lot more data set and covers a lot more scenarios. Small language model usually are very specific to some certain specific task. Okay. Now, of course, at the end of the day, how do we use this? How do we go about using this large language models? Well, you'll hear the word very often, the word co-pilot, correct? So the idea of co-pilot is that we get to put a wrap around the AI agent, and the AI agent literally is a representation of your large language model, correct? So if I was to draw, we started with a very powerful model called the large language model, correct? How do we use this? Well, what we can do is we can put a layer around it so you can interact with it as a human. You can interact with it, and it has components that are usable to do different things. So it becomes very applicable to a lot of scenarios, correct? So I might show you how that looks like. So when you have a large language model and you want people to interact with it, you most probably need some sort of logic here, correct? There must be some sort of logic that takes a look at what you're saying and then works with that, and then works with a large language model to find out what you really want to do, and then goes about getting the things done, right? And then coming back to the large language model to create a reply, and the reply goes back to you, correct? So this layer that I'm talking about is what we call an AI agent. An AI agent is literally a orchestration, means it's got some sort of logic that it can accept incoming requests from you, correct? And then interact with the LLM. And as the LLM comes up with a plan on what to do, it will go out there and get those things done. So which is example, make an API call, go to a database, retrieve some data, go to the web and find something. All these comes back to the orchestrator. The orchestrator then takes all of this back into the LLM. The LLM then thinks about it and comes up with an answer, correct? And that answer eventually goes back to you, correct? So that answer again goes back via the orchestrator and back to you, correct? That is why this AI agent is, it's basically a piece of logic that gets to help you interact with the large language model and all the other things that are needed by the large language model to give you a meaningful response, correct? Now, when you take an AI agent and you put a UI to it so a human can interact with it, what you just created is a co-pilot. A co-pilot is a UI where you as a human can interact with it. There's an agent at the back of it. And of course, there's an LLM which provides the intelligence to that agent. That basically what is a co-pilot, correct? So of course, when you have a co-pilot, all right, so remember in a co-pilot, there is an AI agent in it. This is your co-pilot, correct? So when you interact with a co-pilot, the agent can call upon other AI agents. Okay, it can call other agents to provide assistance, correct, to be able to break a task down. So you have multi-agent scenario in that sense, correct? You have multi-agent scenarios. And of course, this agent can also use tools, can also use data, can do literally access a lot of different services, APIs, and systems and whatever not. They can even use a computer, means that they can fire up a virtual machine, log into that computer, open up the browser and do things which doesn't have an API, so they can manually get the job done. And that's what an AI agent can do. Correct? Of course, vendors, if you take a look at people like Microsoft, they say, look, we have the Microsoft 365 platform, right? So it makes sense if we build something that integrates into all the application in Microsoft 365. And then you have Azure AI, which says, okay, well, this is for you to go and build functionalities that can integrate to large language models, or you can build custom agents. GitHub Copilot is to help you write code. Correct. So this is a co-pilot which helps you write code. This is a co-pilot that works with the CRM database backend or ERP or finance And then you have Power Platform. Power Platform, literally, that's a low-code development platform. There's a Copilot there as well. So all these, there's about 80 to 90 Copilots within entire Microsoft that helps you do different things. So I'm actually writing an application, and that is done by using GitHub Copilot, designing an application from scratch. And if I want to build my own application, I can always go and spin up the resources that I need to build that, correct? So you have an idea of what AI Copilot agent. So Copilot agent means there is a UI for humans. If you talk about AI agents, there is no UI. You have to build an application in front of that. So in an AI agent, an Azure AI agent would be that you go to Azure, which is a cloud service. You have an AI agent that you build. Notice it's just a remote service. So you will then build an application. It could be an application, it could be a website that can connect to this AI agent and get something done for you. So previously, what you would have done is if you're building a web, you would have a back end, correct? In the back end, you're going to build all the logic. You're going to write lines and lines of code where all the logic is defined. Now you don't need to. Your backend literally is an AI agent. Can you have more than one AI agent? You absolutely can, correct? So I could build an application, correct, where the back end is made up of many, many agents, correct? So this is all AI agents. They all can interact with one another to get things done, correct? Of course, there must be some sort of orchestrator, the middle person between your app and the agent. So here we can use different frameworks for this, correct? So we can use like semantic kernel, we can use Azure Agent Framework, and of course you can use open source stuff like LangChain and stuff like that as well to do that framework stuff. Okay, pretty cool what you can do with that. I think my screen is still showing, right? I think Siraj has got my camera on or something because that screen is one huge screen. I think somebody want to disable the microphone. I will be able to, okay, gets done. Okay, cool, all right? Okay, great. So let's go back here again, all right? So now, if somebody comes and say, well, I want to build an AI agent, correct? I want to build an application with an AI functionality to it. The first question is this three question: what problem are you trying to solve? Correct. Number one. Number two, do you really need an AI agent or not? We'll figure that out shortly. Correct. Number two, what outcomes will it deliver? So, okay, sure. You say you want a US agent. We say, okay, what are you trying to solve? Number two, what do you want out of this AI to do for you? Correct. And number three, does it align to what your overall organizational goals are, which is your strategic goals? Correct. Here's a very good example. Correct. So you can see here, we look at some high-level use cases: customer support automation, marketing, code generation, visual content, multi-model scenarios. All these are the different models that we can use eventually, correct? Now, very, very important, when people say they want to build some sort of an AI functionality within the organization, we always come back to cost, okay? So understand what are your cost drivers. Number one, correct, there needs to be a certain strategic return of investment of what you're going to invest. So just know that when you do something related to AI, you are investing. Investment always means that you're going to put in a certain amount of money, you're going to eventually get a business value, and you're going to get back more than the amount that you spend. It's not going to happen within a day, within a week. Sometimes it can take months, sometimes it can take a year, correct? Okay, and predictable. So predictable means that the idea of predictable means that when you're working with oops, sorry, where did I go? Did my screen just go haywire? 1 minute. Oh, sorry. What's happening on my other screen? Hold on. I need to go back here again. Okay, here we are, correct? Okay, cool. Now, understand cost drivers. So number one is when you have a cost driver that's predictable. I give you an example. You say that you're going to use AI, you know exactly how many times you're going to use it, and you know exactly how much it's going to cost you. Okay? Somebody saying something?
Then strategic investments escalate if
I think by default, everybody should be muted. Okay, cool. No problem. All right, cool. Let's get back to that again. Okay. And number three is pay as you go. In some scenarios, you don't know what the cost is going to be like. You know that you want to run this AI solution, but you don't know exactly how much it's going to cost to run it. So you might use what we call pay as you go token. Means the more tokens you send back and forth between your application and to AI functions in the back end, you're going to increase the number of tokens. That means additional cost, correct? So usually when we are building a application, we might do this, correct? Because it's very there's a small burst of usage of AI, but it's not into production already. Usually, then when you go into production, you kind of know exactly how much it's going to cost you, correct? What are the challenges and opportunities, correct? So challenges, opportunity literally means if you say you're going to run AI, so what are the chances of you oops sorry chances of you being able to use AI in a way that it's beneficial to the organization, correct? So we want to see that. And of course, when you're using AI, there's also the possibility that it might uh, it might it might have challenges for your organization to be able to take to adopt AI. So key challenges, usually that means that somebody has built an AI, but it's not giving the response that we want. It's not reliable. It's biased, correct? It affects the data privacy and stuff like that. That could be key challenges. With risk matters, correct? A lot of time when we talk about AI, people start thinking about trust and accuracy, correct? They also want to make sure that whatever it does, it's compliant, it's ethical, and so on and so forth. And then finally, opportunity, correct? So one of the coolest thing, of course, with AI is the idea that it works a million times, maybe more faster than a human being. So doing things like fact checking, verifying data, fine tuning, and even include in having AI with all the governance framework built around it, making sure your data privacy is protected. When you do all that stuff, you do get opportunities with AI that you can eventually use. All right. Now, let's go take a look at the actual process of building this AI application, correct? So we all know what prompts are. I don't need to go into specific of what they are. So prompts are usually made up of four main things: goal, context, source, expectation. The idea is that every prompt has to have these four components, gives you a pretty good idea of what you want to get the AI to give to you. So here's a very good example. You can say that I have a goal, and this is a context of that goal, and what source you should use to get me that reply, and of course some expectation, correct? Maybe the formatting and the way the language should be used, and so on and so forth, correct? Now, one very important thing is when you are using AI, it should be relying on data that is trusted, correct? So grounding means that every reply that come back from the AI is based on verified data. When that is done, we call it that the response is grounded, correct? When it's coming from the data that has not been verified, we call it ungrounded response, correct? That's most probably that what we don't want. Unless we are doing certain activities, maybe yes, in most activities, they no. We also have a platform, a framework that we use to create application. Now, the reason why we use something called a retrieval augmented generation. So generation means it's generated by a large language model. We are going to augment that generation. We're going to help the large language model when it generates content. We're going to augment that by initially retrieving some data. So here's a very good example, correct? Somebody writes a prompt, that we use the prompt and we go into our grounded data and we're going to do a search. We're going to come with the search results, and we're going to take the search results together with the original prompt. We're going to give it to a large language model, correct? The large language model then comes back with the response. The reason why we do this is we cannot fit this entire data into the prompt. It's too big, correct? We're talking about hundreds of gigabytes or terabytes. So we usually have to do a search against this data first, get most probably the top 20 or top 10, and then include those results into the prompt and then set it to a large language model. Of course, large language model this day has a very large context window. The last time I checked, it's maybe about 400 pages, A4 size pages can fit into the prompt in the context window of the model. But again, sometimes your corporate data is a lot more larger than that, correct? The next thing, of course, when you build AI model, you need to make sure that it follows certain standards. Number one, there is data security and data and security considerations, correct? When we say a trustworthy AI, what does that mean? It means it's using high quality data, correct? And he's got a very good security practice against that data. Why does data quality matters? Well, data quality matters because the data is going to be used as the for grounding for the model to reply to you. So you got to make sure, number one, you provide the data in the correct format. You have very good quality data, correct? And there's always checks against that data to make sure that it is not biased, it's certified to be used in AI scenarios, and so on and so forth, correct? And of course, anytime you're working with data, there needs to be governance and compliance. There's certain things that you can do with AI with that data, and there's certain things you're not supposed to do, correct? Okay. Now, all of these, the reason why I'm talking about all these things is because when you work with the platforms such as Microsoft Azure in the Foundry, or you work with Copilots, all these are included. These capabilities are included within that platform. You can easily enable them, configure them, and get going, correct? Okay. Now, let's take a look at what machine learning is. I have a short video here. I can play that for you, but I think, let me see if I can do that for you, correct? I'm going to stop sharing. Then I'm going to share again and choose um, include the audio. And then let me see if I can play that for you, okay? Here we go.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and I'll be your AI-generated guide to machine learning. Machine learning is about using data to predict things. For example, an ice cream seller predicting demand for tasty frozen treats, a doctor predicting patient risk for diabetes, or an Antarctic researcher identifying penguin species. Machine learning can help with all of these scenarios and more. Now, when you're ready, move on to the next unit, and we'll dive into how machine learning works.
Okay. So it wants to show me how machine learning works. I'll come back to that video in a short while, okay? So the idea of machine learning is pretty straightforward because many years ago, we invented algorithms that be able to take a look at your data. And if you provide data with certain fields or segments of data, we can take that data and then generate a code that eventually gets to predict a new version of that data. That is a really cool thing to be doing, right? So imagine this. I always use this term. I always say that machine learning algorithms, correct? They give birth, machine learning algorithm give birth to algorithms. Okay, so what is algorithm? Algorithm is code, correct? Machine learning algorithm, of course, they are specialized algorithm which give birth to algorithm. So I give you an example here, correct? So if we take a certain amount of data, this includes labels, which are basically the answers that we want. It also includes features. Features is the data that we're trying to analyze. We give it to a machine learning algorithm. It's going to give you a machine learning model, correct? This is what's going to get. This machine learning model, it's nothing more than just a piece of code. So did you just generate code without using a developer? Answer is yes. All you did is use machine learning algorithms with the right kind of data. You just generated code without ever writing a single line of code. What does this code can do now? Well, this code can now be used for many things. This code, correct, or should I say machine learning model, can now be used for inputting new data, correct, and it will be able to do predictions. There you go, predictions. So maybe I use millions of X-rays, and each X-ray had the diagnosis of what the case was. and we fed that into a machine learning algorithm, and eventually it created a piece of code that when you give it a new x-ray, it could predict what the problem with that person was. It could tell you, like, well, on the left side of the lung there's very, very little tiny water liquid that's forming at the end of the lungs in the alveoli, and that could be a sign of some sort of infection. It could predict that for you because we trained it with millions of x-rays that we know what the actual problem of that x-ray is. And that's what basically a machine learning idea is. Now, it's very important. Yes, there is a scenario that you don't need a large language model. All you need is a business consideration to say, okay, well, we can get away with AI. We can implement AI but using a machine learning model, correct? We don't need to go and use large language models for that case, correct? So this is how it looks like. I just drew that for you earlier. So first of all, you understand what the task is. Correct? You bring all the data that you have to be able to train the model, and then you test the model to validate whether it's working well to a certain level of accuracy. Then you deploy the model and you start using. It's really that simple. So it could be a warehouse, correct? How do they know how much stock they need to keep in their warehouse? Well, they have a model that they built in-house that tells them that a certain point of time, a certain day, certain month, and in a certain occurrences of certain activity, how much stock you should have. So they end up not keeping too much things, and they don't end up keeping too little things, correct? So they're highly optimized in their warehouse. How cool is that, correct? So that's just one example of a use case that you can use. And that is what we do that with machine learning, all right? So let's go into the second part. I still have some time. I'm going to try to cover all of the scenarios where we can use AI to obtain business value, correct? So the first one was to use machine learning, and now we go into the second one, correct? The second one is to be able to derive business value by using a copilot. So Copilot, as you know, it's an AI agent with a UI for you as a human to interact with it, and there are copilots literally everywhere. Correct. So I could go right here. Let me just kick off my. I'm gonna go here, switch to my work, and I'm going to log in using my m365copilot.com. And there you go, correct? So here's my Copilot. I can start a new chat and I can begin the process of interacting with that Copilot. I'll show you something so cool. So my son, he's 11, and what he does, he races carts. So when I say race carts, means he literally gets involved in motor racing. That's his passion. I mean, I used to race, but and if he's interested, of course, I will let him do it, and he does. And what I did is, this is data that is collected from the logger, the data logger in the cart. What the data logger does is capture everything, information such as GPS. If you look up here, there is information such as the distance travel. This is the whole lap. And then you can see water temp, internal battery power, RPM, GPS speed. I have my latitude and longitude, and then all the way down to the amount of throttle that you press, the amount of brake that you press, and so on and so forth. That is most probably the coolest thing that you can do. I can collect this data, and you know what I can do with this data then? I can then use this data to be able to understand the way he's driving. This is just him. This dude is 11 years old. That's his Ayrton Senna inspired helmet. That's him driving. So there's a data logger in there which is capturing all these data. So what I did is I brought this data in, which is almost about 10 megs, and I say, hey, you know what I want to do is, so here's the data, correct, exported, and this is what I want to see. I want to compare the laps. I want to see brake throttle analysis, corner speed evaluation, consistency check, and mechanical insights. And he starts doing that check for me, correct? How cool is that? And then eventually I say, well, identify which specific corner I can gain some time. And he goes and tells me this. How cool is that, correct? It says highest value time gain. So this is the lab distance. So this is about 6164 to 6204 meter. So what I need to do is I need to go into their software called Ray Studio. I need to then measure at which point, which corner is he referring to. Not only that, I went to it and said, can you draw that chart for me? It literally draw me the track map, correct? I need to give it some GPS data, and that will look like, because this shows that the GPS trace, but I need to map it, superimpose it on an actual track. And then I told it, I said, this kid is 10 years old. You know what he said? Look, he says for 10-year-old kids, there's something very specific that you have to understand, because for junior drivers, there's a certain limitation that they need to think about, correct? And even tells me what I shouldn't do with a young kid. Don't try to be, don't make them into, aggressive gain and loss overlays, and even tells me how I should talk to it. Can you see? It says this is how you should talk to a crit family. So you can say, see how smooth this lap is. That's why it felt easy. Can you see this corner worked because you didn't rush the throttle too much? And then right down here tells me what I need to think about. Correct? It says for young kids, consistency is more important than speed. Correct? Because that's very important. And it says people who are very young when they drive, they are limited by physical capabilities. So they cannot sustain 1.8 to 2 Gs. Just to give you an idea, that car that he drives carries a lot of different Gs. Let me see if I can show you here. See, it says the deceleration is between 2 to 2.8 Gs. That's a negative G that happens on this 11-year-old kid. So all of this I'm doing with analysis. I'm literally now be able to be a coach, be able to describe to him what we should be doing and which specific corner we should be focusing on. That is pretty amazing, right? That for me, it's a great business value. And of course, for an organizational purposes, that's play even a better. There's even a more better opportunities, because as a business, there's always revenues and customers and stuff involved. Correct. So Microsoft has a lot of different copilots. They have the free version copilot. There's the paid version copilot. Correct. And we always think that copilots are most probably the coolest way to get started. You can start with what Microsoft gives you. The one I showed you earlier was the built-in 365 Copilot, the licensed version. It can do all of that stuff already. And the cool thing with the new version, the cool thing with Excel now, let me go back to that chart. Did I just close it? I think I did. No problem. That was just an experiment. I want to go back here, and I want to show you something really cool, because with the new version of Microsoft 365 Copilot, they have something called the agent mode. Let me open up this document again. And you can see that when I'm opening the Copilot, there's something called the agent mode, correct? And I can switch that on. See, if I go into Copilot, I'm just clicking on the side panel, and you will see there's something called agent mode. You see that? Here. That means I am actually running in agent mode. Just to give you an idea, let me close that, and I'm going to go add the agent mode. Previously, there was a drop-down option here, which lets you. So when I do this agent mode thing, it means I can actually get here, and see? Correct. So you can see that I can even add it in Copilot. I can even call upon other agents if I want to. So if I go add it in Copilot, and there you go. This means that whatever I do here, it will directly make changes to my data. That's pretty cool stuff to be able to have, correct? And if you didn't know, Microsoft has started to bring all the anthropic models. As of today, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, Microsoft officially have a Microsoft 365 connector for the Claude work, which is Anthropic's platform of Copilot. There's a connector, which means when you use Claude, you can directly connect to Microsoft 365 tenant, connect to the Graph API, and access all your data in there. How cool is that? Correct. And the preview version of the co-work or the Copilots in Claude is actually in the preview mode in Microsoft.
Gil, you're on mute.
Somebody muted me. I didn't mute myself.
Yeah, there's someone trying to play funny and removing certain people as well. Let's find them out. But
Yeah,
I
it could be a
think,
cool feature to
guys,
use.
yeah,
All right, so
I think,
the
guys,
cloud
yeah,
cowork
thanks.
is pretty cool because cloud cowork is Entropic's platform for Copilot, just like the way Microsoft 365 Copilot is. And Microsoft has decided to create a connector. So from cloud cowork, you could connect to your Microsoft 365 tenant. So you're not just limited to what you can do within the Azure, Microsoft 365 platform. You could also use Copilot and then use connector to Microsoft 365, and that's really cool. Correct? At the end of the day, you could also use agents that Microsoft has created for you. They are for free. You can just use them out of the box. Of course, you can see here, I have all these agents. I have a researcher agent. Microsoft Fabric has their own agent as well that you can use. And I also have the analyst agent. That is really cool. I will show you an example here. Let me see if I can show you an example of the analyst. So I got a contract. I recently was given a contract to become an advisory board member of a company. Then I gave that contract to the analyst and I say, hey, could you look at this agreement that they've given to me? And I want you to ask some questions, correct? So it went on to analyze, did a summary, and then it went into the compensation part, correct? I get the stock option. Here's my stock option. And then it goes on to say you should go and ask all these questions, correct? And then also, termination rule, it say this is what you should go in, you can discuss with them, make sure you are protected from liability. So I say this is very good. So this part of the contract is really good because if I give them advice on AI and they go to the customer and something goes wrong, I'm not liable for that, correct? So it's pretty cool. It literally analyzed a contract agreement, and I say, look, can you please draft a reply for me? So I can send to the company to make changes to the agreement, and he did just that. Look, that is what I sent to them. I said, this is I have read through your agreement, and this is the questions I have. That's crazy, right? So that is one of the agents that come for free if you're a licensed user of Microsoft 365, correct? Now, again, you are thinking, yes, Abdu, this is all great, fantastic. You talk about all this cool stuff, but I really want to know how do I decide I need this? Do I need to use a Copilot or AI agent, or I don't need? And I don't want to end up using it and then realize that I wasted my money. So here, this is where an AI agent or Copilot is useful. We are talking about the built-in agents and the Copilot that comes from people like Microsoft, for example. So these are the three scenarios, correct? A document heavy business process, a data heavy, and a meeting heavy. These three things are usually the key components for you to decide, yes, I'm going to end up using Copilot, correct? So for example, you notice I got an agreement, I analyzed the agreement, I created a reply. Imagine a company where they receive 500 agreements every year. Maybe they are legal department of a corporation, or maybe they receive 1,000 contracts every month and they need to review all of them and then find out whether it fulfills their needs or fulfills their matches their policy and their internal requirement. That is document heavy. What if you have a lot of data and you do have to do things like forecasting? So one of my customers is a Johnson and Johnson, where they, before they run a manufacturing process, they literally go do some hedging to take a look at how much cost is going to get to get all the supplies, how much is going to cost to run the manufacturing process, and then how much can we sell and how much can we get back a profit and stuff like that. This is without even lifting a finger. Just want to do the math to find out where we are at. And here's an example of that one, correct? Pretty cool, right? So what another thing is, when you get a Copilot, you can always extend the Copilot. Well, when you say extend, means you can give it tools, you can give it additional tools, you can then give it additional data, and you can give it some additional workflows. You can integrate workflows if you want, you can give it additional tool, and if you want to give it additional data, correct? So now you're just extending that beyond that Microsoft 365 data. Now, one of the very important thing to understand is whenever you use a Copilot in Microsoft's platform, in the 365, there's a very powerful API called the Microsoft Graph API that is used to connect to every single data about all the topics that you represent as the person who has the mission or the representation of the organization or this tenant. So we take all of that data, whatever that you have permission to, and we put that into this crazy billion node graph structure. At any point of time, if you ask me about a meeting, I can quickly relate that to everything with regards to that meeting. So if you attended a meeting, I can then map to the people who attended the meeting, what was said in the meeting, what file was referenced in that meeting, and what are the action item that needs to be done. I can relate all of them together, correct? And that can be done by using what we call Microsoft Graph. So Copilot in Microsoft 365 basically does just that. Anytime you're running a Copilot in Microsoft 365, it's going to take all the data that you have access to, put that into a graph. You know, I talked about there the connector that's available from Cloud Cowork. Yes, when Cloud Cowork connects to your Microsoft 365, it also uses the Graph API. It's crazy, right? It doesn't say here, but it actually does. Correct. So when you use Cloud Cowork and you connect to your Microsoft 365 tenant, in here, Graph API picks all the data and makes the data available for this Copilot. So it doesn't matter you're here or here. This functionality of Graph API is available in both scenarios. Correct. So then the decision is, do we buy a Copilot? Do we extend what we have, or do we build own ones? Correct. So this are usually a decision that's made based on a Microsoft's own adoption framework. There are a couple of different decisions that you have to make. Of course, the right approach is always a very strategic decision because it impacts the speed of the availability, the cost, and the flexibility of using that Copilot. So build, of course, is going to take longer, but it's 100% customized. Extend means I can still take whatever that I buy and then give it additional functionality without writing a lot of code. And of course, the first one is just literally get off the shelf and things just work for you. Okay. All right. And then, of course, finally, I have my what are the opportunities with regards to AI. So now, when you are dealing with AI, regardless you're using a Copilot or you're building your own AI agent, there's some very core pillars that needs to be implemented with regards to being responsible in using AI in Copilot, correct? So number one is make sure that you have safety and transparency. This are included in the Copilot that you use in Microsoft 365 platform, where we filter away harmful and inappropriate content. Correct. We always Copilot also explains to you the reasoning behind how did it come up with the answer, and that's pretty cool. So it's being transparent. There's always human oversight. That's why it's called a Copilot. It doesn't do the final action. You have to be the one who say go, no go, or send the email or don't send the email. Correct. It helps you generate content and takes action, but the human being eventually has the final say. And then, of course, governance. In Microsoft 365, regardless whether you're using a Copilot or you're building your own agent, there is a lot of privacy controls that can be implemented and used. Here's just an example of Copilots that you can buy, correct? As long as you have the licenses for any one of these 365 subscriptions, the Copilot is an add-on, correct? So you can either do a monthly subscription or you can do a pay-as-you-go. And of course, these are the features. We go through that in detail when we do the training, all right? Now, the final part, of course, is to talk about business value, correct? So how to drive business value with AI. And this part here is you're going to build your own AI agent. We talked about Copilot. That's the one that you use, that's off the shelf, and you can extend it with not a lot of code. But then when you want to build something from scratch, then you go into something called Azure AI Foundry, correct? So AI Foundry is basically where you build an agent, you customize the orchestration, and you add all the responsible AI layers for governance and security and protection, correct? Not only that, you can eventually monitor end-to-end process of building these functionalities, correct? So what can I do with Foundry if I build my own model? Well, number one, you can use language and content, correct? You can use generative AI, or you can use the built-in AI services for natural language processing. So take note, it's either this or this. It's either this or this, correct? There are scenarios where this is applicable. There are scenarios where this is applicable. If you're going to create a restaurant booking system, then most probably this is where you are, because it's very predictable. There's a fixed logic. It's pretty straightforward, correct? This one is where there's no fixed logic, and you most probably want to use that. If you are dealing with vision and speech, there are services in Foundry that you can use out the box. Notice no generative AI being used here, correct? Because we just want to understand what we see and what we hear. We don't need to generate new content. And then what if I give you invoices and POs and stuff like that, and you need to extract information from there? And that will be information extraction. Of course, also not generative AI, correct? But you can build generative AI solutions if you want to. So here's just an example of what is available in the Foundry. You can see I have Vision, I have Azure Language, I have my document intelligence. This is pretty cool. This allows you to extract content from documents. I was working on this recently. Let me see if I can show you that document here. It looks something like this. Where is the report? Here. So this is what we call a body analysis report. A body composition analysis, correct? A body composition analysis is to analyze the data about a person. So you have a machine that you stand and you measure that, and then eventually you do get a score, and then you get a report in this, like a picture or PDF file. I want to extract data from here. I can if I use that service which I just mentioned, this one. Imagine building a cool application that you can use in the gym. You can upload the PDF after you do a scan, and it will extract all that data and then store that in your profile for you, correct? And then, of course, you have Azure Search. I talked about this RAG solution earlier. In RAG solution, you take a whole bunch of data, you convert that into an index, correct? And then that index is then searchable. That is the job of this guy. Anytime you want to spin up a Azure, a model, there's about 1,200 different large language models and small language models available in the catalog in Microsoft Foundry that you can spin up. And you can use that to build literally any one of your solution, correct? Here are some scenarios where it's very applicable on how you decide what a common scenario with Foundry. All these mean that you're building an agent or an AI application service from scratch, correct? You have a visual visual inspections, you have a sentiment and streamline documents, or you have a retrieval. This is where the Azure Search comes in, right? Now, what I do in the training, I basically go out there and show you the decision tree around how do you decide what to do in different AI scenarios, and I'll be able to show that, do that in the full day session that we run for this, correct? So notice that when you want to use a model to build an AI solution, there's all solutions. There are always these options around, do I use a pre-built tool, correct? A pre-built tool will be things like the sentiment analysis, the vision, the document intelligence, and stuff like that, correct? You can always use Foundry models. I told you there's about 1,200 to 1,300 large language models and small language that you can use. You can provision them and use them. And then, of course, with that, you can also build an RAG, because you can take your enterprise data, build a retrieval augmented generation index that is used for searching, and then eventually serve the search result to an AI model, correct? And then, of course, you can also fine tune your own large language model. You can take a base large language model like GPT-4o. You can then tune it, fine tune it, to be able to be customized for your use only, correct? And with most things that you do in Azure, you most probably can say, look, I want to do a prepaid because I kind of know what the predictable costs are and you can enjoy some discounts. Or if the work is very unpredictable, it's got its own burst and pause moments, you most probably can go with pay as you go, and you can deploy in the model in that sense. You can deploy your solution in that sense, correct? Okay, that is this part here. Let me go to the last bit, and we should then be able to complete what I wanted to cover today, correct? So of course, remember that when we do that training, we do have hands-on labs that you can use in the session. I'm just covering the content at the moment so I can show you what goes through within that full day session of training, correct? When you do these training for 731. So here is the final one. This is where we start looking at things like leveraging AI tools. Now, when I say leveraging AI tools means you're going to implement AI as a very strategic part of your business, aka as part of your business process, correct? So we kind of see this in a few things. Number one, we see that is going to be a big part of your employees' own enrichment process, correct? So maybe you want to be able to drive scenarios with where you help the AI helps employees to get things done faster. Could be HR, could be getting answers faster, or getting IT support, and so on and so forth. Another one we think that it makes a great value is a customer engagement. Number three is the business process. You get to reshape your business process. And finally, is you get to innovate new ideas and run some prototypes and use them, correct? And of course, regardless of which framework that you use, the approach always makes sure that you're working in a platform that gives you the capability of cloud and all the benefits of the cloud and all the security, governance, protection, compliance that comes with that, okay? So here are just some examples, correct? So we think that copilots and agent really help at a personal level, correct, to be able to improve productivity at a personal level. And then when we go into things like agent, we get to improve business processes, correct? Okay. And why we think Azure Cloud and AI platforms is a perfect place to be is, well, because we bring Azure together with whatever your existing enterprise data already exists in Azure. So if you're running Microsoft Fabric, Cosmos DB, or anything else, we get to combine all of that, and you put an AI layer in front of that, correct? Azure comes with all these benefits of governance, protection, and all these responsible AI and security that's integrated to your day-to-day operational work that you do in Azure. That follows through you to what you do with the AI part of that as well, correct? Now, this is what I really want to go through before we call it a day. At the end of the day, when the conversation happens around using AI for an organization, that one key thing that you have to do, that homework you have to do, is to find out if there's business value using AI. So what Microsoft did was create a cloud adoption framework specifically for AI adoption. And notice it goes through these 5 different stages, correct? So we go into something called the business strategy first. Correct. Here's where we talk about how, from the business point of view, the AI will support what the goals of that business is. A strategy is a plan to win. So when you have a plan to win, we want to see where AI can help you in that plan. Then we need to understand the technology that's going to be available, that we're going to use, and if it's available, and how we're going to use it. And as with everything that is AI, data is very important. No data, no AI. So we need to think about that data part. Then we need to think about AI strategy and experience, correct? So we need to be able to understand what kind of expertise we have that we can then eventually build these AI functionalities within the company. Now, the key thing is going to be adoption. So we need to think about organization and culture. That means that we need to make sure that there's a certain driver from the top down where it drives the AI adoption, and they are center of excellence within the organization to be able to answer worries related to AI and to drive the adoption of it. And finally, whenever you use AI, you need to have the responsible AI pillars in place, and that's going to be the last part, correct? So this part of the strategy is very important. So in that training, we actually do a paperwork. We take a piece of paper, we start doing all these on exercise, and we then come up with business values right down to the AI governance part. I think it's pretty cool, correct? And of course, as with everything else, we cover the responsible AI part of it. And then, of course, when you talk about AI, we always think about an organization's frontier. So what's a frontier organization? A frontier organization which is driving transformation with AI first mentality, correct? AI first strategy. So we go through that part as well. There is a very nice templates that we use that you can eventually use in your own organizations to go through that whole process and cycle. But the very, very important part is going to be this, and we cover that details here. So in the training, so you get to literally sit down and come up with a plan that can be used by the management to decide a go, no go scenario, correct? That said, I kind of covered what we usually would do in that training. I'm done with what I have. If there's any question, let me see. Let me see. Okay, so I don't see any of the I don't see any questions in there. Um,
Any
cool.
questions, anyone?
Yeah, Zaf, if I may, is it okay?
Yes, yes, please, Kofi. Carry on.
If you could just go back to that slide on the entire strategy approach, I wanted to dwell a second on the middle one, which looks at AI, strategy and experience. You mentioned that there's certain skill sets that you would typically explore. Is it okay to just go into it for like a minute? What skills would you recommend, as it were, that maybe young people or organizations who are looking to wade into this area adopt from a skill set point of view, so they technically have like a head start when the organization becomes more mature around this? Got it?
Gil?
Yeah, I'm muted. I forgot about that. Okay, cool. So this AI strategy and expertise, it's not the general advice of what people should be doing. This is related to that organization, correct? So when an organization says, look, okay, yeah, AI is going to work for us. We have realized that this is what we need to do. Now they have to think about, do they have the expertise to get the job done, correct? So they looked at they look at the decision tree and they realized that their strategy was going to be to build their own model using a machine learning algorithms. So now they have to think about, do we have the expertise to do that, correct? Not only to do that, do we have the expertise to maintain that? So it's not the general idea to people in general what they should be doing. This is very specific to the organization that's doing this practice, where they have created a business strategy, then they look at their technology and data strategy, and then they think about what kind of technology they're going to use and if they have the people for it. So that is what this is all about. It's not a generic advice to people on what they should be doing. All right. So if a company comes to me and say, we have this thing, we've been hearing about AI, and we want to understand if we can use AI, and if we did, will we get benefits on it? Then I go through this whole cycle with them. I start with the business strategy part, correct? I identify what they're trying to achieve. And remember, when you think about what you're trying to achieve, we need to see whether an AI will be useful for you or not. Sometimes 1 out of 10 customers, all we did was optimize their existing business process, and that's it. No AI needed. Correct? In some cases, yes, 8 out of 10 AI eventually it's needed to be able to carry out functionalities that they want to achieve as an organization. Okay. Hope that
Okay.
answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Anything else? Anyone else? I guess, to reiterate on Kofi's question previously, Gil. Yes. So, what would be currently kind of, let's say, fresh graduates or new to the industry? What kind of AI qualifications would organizations be looking for, or
Well,
what
it
should they
depends.
focus on?
Depends on a different organization, correct? So sometimes organization they are building application using Power Platform. So a good idea of being able to good experience of using Copilot to be good advice. Sometimes you're a developer, but then people want to build AI agents and AI application. So you become the person who is dealing with AI. You're the middle person between AI and humans. So you are the person who integrates humans UI with an AI extension in the backend, correct? So it depends. If you are a lawyer, then you would think about using copilots from a legal point of view, correct? So I think fundamentally everybody should be learning how to use AI, regardless if it's OpenClaw or it's Claude or Microsoft Copilot. Everybody should learn how to use a tool which is a AI agent or copilot. Start learning how to use it correctly, correct, and already start doing things within your business or within your personal life with it. That is most probably key. So I showed earlier the Excel file that I was doing. It's a data logger from my kids' data, and notice the amount of work I had done on it, and I'd be able to extract so much information from it. That is what I'm saying. Everybody should learn how to use AI. Correct. And if you to compare that with, if somebody says, hey, how can we improve everybody's health in a country? You know how you do that? The first thing, learn how to cook. Learn how to cook fresh food rather than relying on takeaways and fast food and chemically heavy ultra processed food. So the same thing with AI. Before you get into different specific specialties in AI, learn how to use Copilot. If you're a developer, learn how to do that. You learn how to write code by using a Copilot that's designed for writing code. Here, I give you an example. This is where I'm doing this. I'm writing an application. This is a mobile application, and you can see every single one of this code is not written by me. I can organize it. I know what it's saying. Here's the plan that was created by Copilot. And then I'm actually implementing all these plans one by one. And you can see that it's actually working. I'm working with all these code. It's all written by Copilot. And here on the right side of the pane, you can see all the conversation that I'm having with my Copilot, correct? Just give it a minute, and there you go. Look, all these are my interactions with it. And we go bit by bit as we're developing it. So everybody, no matter what your job is, you're legal, you're a teacher, you're a developer, or you're an engineer, you're architect, you should be using, you're interior designer, you should be using an AI tool. Learn it, which is specific to whatever your job is, correct? Okay. That is what I think everybody should be doing. Before you get into a very specialized field, that's what you should be doing. If you're a developer coming out of the university, go learn how to write code with a Copilot. If you are an accountant that came out from fresh grad, you're an accountant, go learn how to use the analyst Copilot in Excel. Learn how to use it. All right. If you're an architect, learn how to use a Copilot. If you're a marketing person, learn how to use a Copilot to generate content. That's I think what everybody should be doing.
Correct.
Cool.
So thank you, everyone. I think that was a great session. I think quite a few takeaways from here. And if you are looking at going deeper, we're always here to assist you. We've got some training sessions that are public classes and private classes. If you're looking for an organization as a whole, the team would have already shared the redemption codes with you, the SkillSpot learning platform as well. And I think, Shahana just shared the the feedback link as well. Please do share your valuable feedback. And sorry about it again. I think there is someone trying to play fine, or probably I need to check my settings as well on why you'll have been kicked out, some of you. We'll check on that and get back. So once again, thank you very much for your time. And before we go, just gonna play our anthem again. Enjoy, everyone. Have fun.
We woke up to a world asking, will I replace her?